So welcome back to the show, people. Today, we are dive a little bit deeper into the world of hybrid athletes with a man who has mastered the art of moving fast while carrying heavy weights, by my opinion. So our guest here today is a former marathon runner and who turns out to be a HYROX powerhouse, or how should I say, or a master in this sport. So Aaron Woodman is with me here today. And as a founder of his WDM coaching and as a former British Open record holder, Aaron has become one of the most sought after minds in the sport industry. But I noted that he's not just like any other coach who looks at the data. He's a very good competitor who consistently lives on the podium by recently just clocking elite time across the globe from London to Warsaw. By that, what makes Aaron truly unique is his no-nonsense approach to the performance and strength and conditioning. So I have noticed that immediately, and in an industry full of flashy trends and overcomplicated circuits, training regimens, I think he advocates more for the boring but very useful basics. So the high-level specificity here, the intentional threshold work, and the disciplined recovery that's truly and actually win the races here. So I think whether you're aiming for your first under 60-minute finished in a HYROX or looking to shave your seconds on your burpee sequence, I think that Aaron knows how exactly where the marginal gains are hidden here. So Aaron, it's a great honor and pleasure to have you on my podcast here today, man.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, nice. Looking forward to getting into it.
It's a huge honor for me. But first things first, you moved from marathon to HYROX. So what was the single hardest running habit for you that you had to break to become a very competitive hybrid athlete here?
So I've always been one for higher volume stuff. So when I was marathon running, I got up to 100 miles a week, 160k. At one point, I did 200k in a week. Coming across to more the HYROX stuff, probably.
Okay.
I don't know if I'd call myself hybrid because I specialized in HYROX. It was more of I knew I had to probably take a hit on the running and bring it down to attack the other sides. In running is very mono structural. So I know I added in strength stuff and plyos and other bits and pieces, but I could easily skip that and just stick with the running.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're competing in HYROX, there's a lot of different facets you need to cover. You can attack them all and get better at the same time, but you can't neglect anything either, because as soon as you start neglecting it, it drops. Whereas in running, I think you can definitely get away with not doing any upper body stuff,
Yeah.
apart from aesthetics, and a little bit of core to, stop you fatiguing too much. But majority of your benefits are going to come from running. And even if you look at the studies, when they add in the plyometrics and the strength stuff, you do get gains with it. But a lot of the times they don't even look at just adding more running in. So I used to just rather just add more running in and not do the rest of the stuff that I didn't really enjoy. Whereas now I've converted to more the HYROX stuff, and I've got used to doing it. And I enjoy it now if I structure it right and structure it for me and what I think is beneficial. But I could still easily just go out for an easy run, but I've got to dial that back and to concentrate on the fundamentals of trying to get better at HYROX and not just running.
For sure, but in this dogma, I think the many athletes and coaches are overcomplicate their training sessions. But in your training system, what was one maybe common element you consider that is practically unnecessary here at the most? What people should not do at all? They should cut it out from the system.
Training too much and training the stations under fatigue too much. So, doing high level AMRAPs and stuff weekly where you're really fatigued from high level running so that the stations aren't as effective. You need to build up your ability to do the stations well before you start doing them under fatigue. And if you're constantly doing AMRAPs and you're going into the station under a high level fatigue, you're not getting the quality to get the adaptations. So separating it, doing the stations less fatigued, so you can still do compromise running at a slower pace so that you can get more quality station, and then breaking your running down so you focus on the threshold running and the station quality separately, and then fix or molding them together. And as you go through the season, then come into a more specific point where you chunk it so that you do um, station and running at race intensities with breaks. And the closer you get to the race, the more race specific it gets. But further out, those blocks don't need to be long, because else you end up just getting plateauing really simply, like really quickly. So starting with the foundations, getting really good at the fundamentals, and then blending the fundamentals together to more race specific stuff. The same as you would in any other sport, whereas the HYROX has just been diluted with this dogma, like you say, of people lying on the floor and being totally busted,
Yep.
and then people expecting the race to be like that. And the race shouldn't be like that. The race should be controlled. Nobody
For
in a
sure.
professional or an elite way is completely melting himself in the early stages of a race, and it shouldn't feel like that. Control until, it needs to be where you need to push it towards the end, where you're still managing fatigue without overcooking it, because you can't come back once you go over the edge.
Yeah. So what do you think is the maybe most controversial opinion here that you hold about the HYROX training today? Is it like you said, that everything needs to be controlled and not busted out? Or is there something else at play
I
here?
think, yeah. So that, but the controversial thing that I probably get a lot of questions about is training maximal strength.
hmm
I don't think once you get to a certain level, maximal strength is probably counterproductive in this environment.
Yeah.
Strength endurance, on the other hand, completely different, because we're training two different elements. So maximal strength is useful to get you to a certain point, but once you can push a sled a certain distance and you can manage that load, you don't necessarily need to get too much stronger. You need to repeat that movement over and over for anything from 2 to, depending how long that element is, 5, 6. Some people are taking 8 or 9 minutes on a sled pull. So you need to be able to do the repeated movement, and training those type 2 really glycotic or ATP, PCR type muscle fibers isn't really that productive. Once you get to a certain level, you can maintain your strength, and during the off season you can continue to build it, because you can't get too strong, but you need to balance that with strength endurance, because the race is anywhere from, like, the world record was 53 minutes and people were taking up to over 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to repeat the output, and one to 5 reps isn't going to be doing that in the same way that repeated efforts are. So there's a use, but it's over prescribed or overrated, probably is the right word.
Okay. And how do you how does it how does it differ for you when it comes to considering that you're coming from a marathon running background? How does it differ for you that the HYROX is on the other side versus the marathon run on the other side? How do you define that durability as an exchange, for the maximum output here?
Yeah, so I think you can answer durability, our athlete durability, in a couple of different ways. Is it the amount of stress or load that person can manage within training and then within the race? Within marathon running, you know that your legs are going to have to work for however long. The world record being 2 hours,
2%.
whatever
Yeah.
it is, up to an average marathon time 4 to 5 hours. You've got to put output, and you've got to be on your feet for that amount of time. But it's a repetitive, cyclic, repetitive action that you need to be able to manage. You need to manage that in training, and the only way you can do that is by building up a lot of easy volume to tolerate the load, and then adding in race-specific elements. But I really think that, and most of the data shows, marathon running is volume heavy, and I still think that HYROX is, but not, obviously, we're across 9 different disciplines, so it's slightly different. You need to be durable with the running, which is 55 to 60% of the race. So a big chunk of your training needs to be that, and you need to have the durability to put out the output after being compromised in the stations. And I think like the erg stations aren't as compromising as the sleds and the lunges, and obviously you don't run after the wall balls, but it compromises you anyway towards the end when you're fatigued. So you need to be able to manage your load so that you can give a good enough output on the stations, and but not go too deep so that you can't recover on the runs, or you can't maintain the running speed that you need to get out a good time. So it's a balance, but it's different. So in marathon running, you need to be repetitive action in the same thing over a long time. In durable, in HYROXes, you need to be able to go red, come back down, and then go again in a different activity. So they're different in that aspect. Does that make sense?
Yes, of course. But in both of these disciplines, like you said, it requires a lot of energy and commitment. But when a client comes to you and hits some kind of stagnation here, how do you determine if it is like a physical limit or just a recovery programming error here that you mentioned based on a volume and intensity?
So yeah, the first thing, like the thing with HYROX, it makes it pretty easy. We can like, or if you go onto a website like RoxFit or
Mm-hmm.
High Results, I like using, you can go on there and you can look at the athletes' results, and you can see their every run split, every station split, how they are measuring up against the rest of the field. So for run splits, it's pretty easy. Like if there's a big drop off from runs one and two are usually a little bit faster. Run one, obviously everyone's excited and out the door, they're fresh.
Yeah.
Run two, still you're not really that compromised. Lactate is quite high because the ski sends it up,
Yeah.
but it's not really a heavy leg compromising, muscle exercise. So it's a little bit faster. And then if there's a big drop off from runs like 3, 4 through to 8, not really, because it includes the rock zone, so you can't really take that into account. But 3 to 7, if it's a big drop off, it usually means that they haven't raced very well, as opposed to a training error or a programming error. Whereas if you start to look at their programs and you're seeing a lot of hard back-to-back days, and no real improvement in threshold times or run-in splits over that time, you probably need to just dial it back and refresh before you move on to the system that I like, which is hard, moderate, followed by very easy. And like I think people um, push these easy days too much so that their hard days are even more compromised. And but people need to just calm down on the easier days to be able to get the quality in on the harder days, because that's where the improvements are made, is the repetition of doing things. I think people need to have a bigger view, a longer scale view as well. Everyone's going on social media and seeing people going from these amazing times to, or so from mediocre times to amazing times in short periods. But it's not like they just started doing stuff a couple of weeks ago. A lot of these people have come from backgrounds in other sports and come across and just learned now to race properly or hit the specific stuff, so they've got better. The average person needs to take a longer view of how to get better at this. You can't expect to start any other endurance sport and get better within 6 to 8 months. You will get better, but it will be